Welcome to Game On, your rapid fire hot take podcast from the team here at Daily Record Sport. I'm Michael Gannon and I'm joined by Graeme Young. Where every week we tackle all the hot topics of the day in Scottish sport and beyond. And the trick is we're up against the clock, Graeme, have to beat the whistle. So it's literally two balding men fighting over a comb. But anyway, so the whole trick is we're not messing about, so we'll get up and running straight away. Straight into our first topic. Obviously a big week at Rangers. Philip Clement gone, Barry Ferguson in. What a start at Kilmarnock, dramatic. And then the big question is, can Barry Ferguson become the permanent Rangers manager?
Yes, why not? Because
right,
the throwback element the other night, I think it reminded Rangers
is he
fans,
qualified for this job?
Maybe not, but I don't think so. I think what's happened here is it's almost like a back to basics approach, and even if Barry Ferguson doesn't get the job, I think they've stumbled upon the way to do it. I think there's a need to find a British element to the job. Maybe like people in the past have been mentioned, like Sean Dyche, that style, just understanding the club. And you maybe
Sean Dyche, I mean, I get the name right, but Sean Dyche is a complete opposite of what Rangers need. Rangers need a manager who knows how to play expansive, attractive football, that can find ways of breaking down low blocks. Are you telling me Sean Dyche is going to be the guy to break up a low block? He's the guy that created a low block.
Yes, to a point, but I think there's an element here where Rangers for a long time...
Hey, we're talking Barry, sorry.
Of course, right. If you take on Barry, right, the premise is, and it's not, they called it Bazball the other night, a very good line for Chris Sutton, our columnist, but the point is that Rangers fans... He's very good. But there's a real element there that Rangers for a long, long time have been unable to win the winnable games domestically, right? So I think they're trying to find that. It might be Barry, or it'll be along that lines where it's just a back to basics, two up front, straighter approach. Now you bring in the 49ers takeover, it might be a different type. Even look at Leeds United, Daniel Farke, a very reliable manager. That was the model that they chose this season for Leeds. How do you see it going? Do you think he can get the job?
I think the response that Barry Ferguson got out of that squad, given the first 20 minutes, it was such a shambles. It looked as though it was going to be an absolute nightmare for him. To get a response and get it was good. I think it all depends on the takeover. It depends on what they see the vision as for the club. I think Rangers need to think outside the box. I think they need to go a kind of an Ange Postecoglou type guy, a guy who knows how, and has got a certain style that can break down teams that are going to try and be awkward against him in Scotland. So I take your point about the British element. I think Barry has got enough in his locker to be a part of this new regime, but as a manager, I think we need someone who's going to be top to rot to take on Brendan Rodgers and Celtic for the end of the new dawn when this comes in at Rangers. But we'll see, it is going to be a whole new... That's the thing with Rangers, it's going to be a whole new situation, new owners, potential new manager, whether or not Barry's there or not. But what about the squad itself? I mean, they're 13 points behind the league, out of the Cups, still in Europe, obviously. But who can you see surviving the new American Revolution at Rangers in terms of the squad?
Yeah, that's a good question. I see straight away, Thank you. But you're welcome. Mohamed Diamande, straight away the other night, I noticed. Now, Barry was living and breathing every moment of that game, but when he embraced Diamande after Badrami's goal, he's like, that's what I want from you, right? And I think that's important. Again, Barry's role is very much up in the air. But you look at a player like Diamande, a bit miscast, that was the best. See, driving a bit of positivity. Sometimes you talk about managers and roles, Clement's conservative nature, you tell it didn't get the best out of a player like that, and I think that's widespread in the squad. And I know Czerny's not a permanent player, but another guy as well, even he was given the chance to be bold and brave and be a bit more reckless as well. I think for players in the squad that are like that, there's a real opportunity for them to do something.
I mean, Diamande is a player, obviously, but he's been inconsistent, hasn't he?
He's not to get too tactical.
And is he physical enough for Scotland?
Yeah, well, he's not a great... See, in the half-turn sometimes, I think that's when he gets in trouble. He's maybe not as nimble as some of these other guys, but the other night, he's brilliant just going in a straight line with the ball, driving it.
Does Diamande get in the Celtic midfield?
Maybe not, but I don't think that's Rangers.
But is this not what it's all about?
Maybe it's a different style.
Rangers?
But I think the bridge between getting to Celtic, there's a few stages to get there, and I feel a player like Diamande in particular has not been able to show his best face at Rangers. At times he's flashed glimpses, but I think what Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann asked him the other night is that akin to what a player like him needs. Who do you think's about for a while?
I think that if the new owners come in, listen, again, there's a few bridges to cross. The new owners come in, that they could really win a good PR war by putting up money to sign Tierney. I think that would be a big move. They're so reliant on him this season, and I think if a better players around him, it would flourish even more. I think Cyril Dessers should be part of the new regime as well. I mean, the big striker, 20 plus goals this season. Brilliant in the second half at Rugby Park the other night. Much derided sometimes. He misses chances, but he does score goals regularly. I think he's done enough to deserve to keep his place in the squad. I think they could do with signing a striker.
So talking about Cyril Dessers, I think Rangers fans would love maybe to regale him if he scores a goal at Celtic Park, and they might get the opportunity to do so. It seems set that this away Celtic Rangers away fans might be coming to an end with obviously the lesser allocation at times. The full allocation is very unlikely to come back, but some fans better than no fans.
I think, listen, obviously it's not been confirmed as yet. I think it would be a step in the right direction to have a sizable away support at these games. If it's 2,500, 3,000, it's certainly better than the 700 or the none we've had in recent years. I think it has diminished the derby. I think in our little insular world up here, it's kind of sometimes not really appreciated the appeal of this fixture beyond our borders. If you're tuned in down in England or Australia, America, if you're a kind of neutral and you're flicking the channels, you want that kind of experience that you've been told about, and it's kind of legendary. You want to sample that. And listen, there's been games in both stadiums that the atmosphere have been good because the home team have been doing pretty well with no fans there. There's been atmospheres that have been pretty bad. I remember at Ibrox when they had no away fans and it turned a bit toxic. I just think it takes away from the fixture. I would like to see it back to where it was, the 7,000 or so, 8,000. I think that made it a real spectacle. And you think, what I have noticed in a lot of these derbies in the last, since before COVID and the big changes and before that point, was that it sometimes is a bit flat, because sometimes away fans are the ones that rile up the home fans. And listen, we know there's some unsavoury stuff, and the behaviour in some of these games has been really poor. That's got to stop as well, because if we don't stop that, it's not going to happen in the future. I just think as a spectacle we do need to have those big sizable supports. I think it does elevate this into something that we can sell and package around the world and monetize as well, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? But yeah, it's a move I think we've all been waiting for, and it's welcome, isn't it?
Yes, and I can tell you this for a fact, it's not just all hate mail that arrives in Record Sport inbox. Without a doubt, from Australia to America and beyond, Asia and all across Europe, the biggest thing that we get messages about is when are they bringing back the full allocation. And I can only echo that. We've all been in those epic games where it's made by the fact that there's a mammoth away support.
Yeah, as long as they all behave. But I mean, I could do it. Everyone just been going up and behaving themselves a wee bit better. In terms of on the pitch, though, let's be honest, the league title looks as though it's in the bag, isn't it? There's a bit of thoughts turning to kind of even the summer and beyond. And Celtic, Jeffrey Schlupp, I mean, it wasn't exactly a kind of marquee signing in the January window, but he's come in. What have you made of his impact at Celtic, and is he worth a deal beyond the summer?
This is the biggest no-brainer deal in history. And you talk about Celtic having a model and the way they do things, but like all of these things, signing the best way to work about transfers, it's supplemented by players like Jeffrey Schlupp. And look at the way Michael Elise, a player he knew well at Crystal Palace, he was incredible against him in the Allianz Arena. But it's more than that. He seems a really amiable guy, very likeable. Just in what do Celtic want? If they're bringing back Kieran Tierney, a player with undoubted ability, a guy itching to prove a point, but what is his one weakness? Injuries. And the Jeffrey Schlupp seems the perfect player. The one thing you need to be honest is he's probably been on great wages down south. He's taken a certain loan deal to make it happen. Would he be willing in that kind of role? And he's versatile as well, but has mostly been left back. Inverted, you see him a lot during the games moving inside. But if they can make that work, to me that feels like the perfect 1-2 combo. Greg Taylor looks highly likely he can move or will move on. So you've got Kieran Tierney, embedded as a starter and Jeffrey Schlupp is the kind of backup you dream of. I think it's one of these deals that makes perfect sense. If you had an argument to the counter,
I do. Listen, I don't disagree that I think Schlupp is a listen, he's an experienced player. He's done it at the top level for a number of years. He's come in. I think he's looked. I thought in Munich, the Bayern game, I thought he was excellent up against his old Palace teammate, Elise. I just think he's 32, come up for 33. I just think, Kieran Tierney is going to be the main man next season. I would like to see Celtic give a bit of opportunity to some younger players. They've got a couple of young fullbacks on the books that I would maybe like to use to see them. I know there's like Matthew Anderson is in Austria and Kobe Donovan that came in pre-season. These guys, Celtic's production line seems to have kind of, hit a bit of a kind of a bit of bump, really, hasn't it? A lot of these players are coming through and doing okay and then leaving the club. So we've seen it with the Ben Dokes and obviously Daniel Cummins now. I think Schlupp's a good option, and I understand if they go and bring him into a permanent deal, nobody would complain. I just would like to see Celtic perhaps having a backup for Kieran Tierney. Is it the next Kieran Tierney? Do you mean like he was and coming through?
Matthew Anderson's got a great name at the club.
Yep.
Hopefully that
the whistle's gone. Away you go.
Okay,
the whistle's
so let's
gone.
talk about the man who will be making these decisions. Definitely for next season and beyond. Perhaps Brendan Rodgers. Will he sign a new Celtic contract? He's here for 3 years. He guaranteed he would be unless he get emptied. That's never going to happen. Will he stay beyond the 3 years? Well,
we're now getting to that point now. It's like it seemed a long way off when he came back. 3 years is a long time in football.
In this city, anyway.
3 days is a long time in Glasgow. It's now getting to that point that people are thinking, what's happening next? He's got next season. I don't think Brendan Rodgers will leave before the end of this contract. I think that's nailed on. I think he's going to see it out. But I think at the end of the 3 years, I think Brendan Rodgers might say, I've come back, I did what I said I wanted to do. I'm now going to go back to my villa in Mallorca and wait for my next opportunity. I'm going to have 6 months in the sunshine, my feet up, and then wait for my next opportunity, because there will be opportunities for him. I just think that, reading between the lines, he's been very non-committal. When asked about it, kind of making me jokes about it all the time. He's always kind of little dodging it and sidestepping it. I think we'll see. I think Rodgers will leave after his 3 year stint. I think he said himself that'll be kind of 6 years across 2 spells, just about. I think he'll walk off into the sunset, and then it becomes a bigger task of who replaces him. So that's what I think. Do you think otherwise? You see be signs that he might stick out?
No, I think he will. To me, it's almost. Do you know Rodgers' status in the game makes you second guess it, because surely there's something else.
So why is he not signing a new contract already then?
I don't know. Give him a bit of time. I think he wants to. He's always asking the big questions transfer wise. He'll push it as far as he can, and rightfully so, to get the players he wants in. I still think the one element, just the counter, or to stick with your argument, you look at guys like Vincent Kompany. No, I'm coming back down quickly, but obviously Vincent Kompany, a manager, some of the managers that in other big teams around the world, Rodgers is good as these managers. There's got to be that competitive hunger to go back to the top leagues. But I feel he's got this burning desire to really truly achieve something remarkable in Europe. Will he manage it? Perhaps not, but I just get this sense. Remember he name-checked Dublin last year for the Europa League? To me, that would be his ultimate legacy, winning a tournament. It's hard for Celtic, they're almost locked into the Champions League, but I think he'll sign for 1 more year at least.
I think he come back because he's unfinished business, and I think the business will be complete in the next year.
Winning the Champions League next year?
Well, that might make him stay. But then again, why not leave at that point? Yeah. Listen, talking about people leaving and coming and going, big transfer news this week. It's slightly outside the window, but kind of slightly surprising transfer news. Jamie McGrath signing a pre-contract at Hibs. Aberdeen's Jamie McGrath. Aberdeen didn't. The statement put out Aberdeen had a bit of a kind of edge to it, didn't it? Yeah. Clearly not particularly happy with it. But is the Dons to blame for this?
Perhaps, and I think there's something interesting. The tough war element of Scottish football, I quite enjoyed that these clubs are really hard battling on the pitch, and it's wee kind of subtle wins off it in their eyes, right? But McGrath's an interesting test case, even more than a player like a Leighton Clarkson, who's not been playing as much the last few years. I think Jamie McGrath, when fit and firing, which obviously not the now, is a banker to play for Aberdeen. And the fact that Hibs in the past have craved him for a number of years, want to get him, I think that's indicative that he's a player of quality. Is it a worry as well, perhaps, that Jimmy Tilleen you've got to keep there's got to be a balance. Now, you go Scandinavian route, that's fine, but a player like Jamie McGrath, that's proper quality. And I would worry for a team like Hibs, out of nowhere, suddenly you look at them in a new light, everything they're doing is right and it's the correct move. It feels like they're making a lot of good decisions. I'd be worried that have we got this wrong, because the fact that Jamie McGrath is going to a big rival, to me, would be a big worry for Aberdeen.
I think the sticking point, it seems to be over the length of the contract. I mean, he wanted a 4-year deal. We got one at Hibs. Aberdeen weren't going to offer him a 4-year deal. The guy he's 28. He's currently out injured. He's had a few wee injury problems, hasn't he, over the years? Played a lot of games, right enough. So I've got a wee bit of sympathy for Aberdeen, because a guy who's 28, 29 in the summer getting a 4-year deal, that's a big commitment to anyone.
That's a James McCarthy deal.
That's the gold-plated standard deal, getting a 4-year deal. So I can understand why Aberdeen were a bit reticent of giving him a 4-year deal. But Hibs obviously seen the opportunity to jump in and offer him what he wanted. So listen, fair play to the lad and his team behind the scenes.
It's an easier one to say yes to as well when you're out injured. That's not even really a go at the player, but you can get the guaranteed deal now, and you know you're not playing for.
I think he's a good player, but I think a 4-year deal is. I mean, if it's come up for 33 by the time the deal's up, I mean, you're hanging your hat on this guy for 4 years. He's a good player. Is he that kind of value for money? I don't know. I think Aberdeen can chalk it up as one that got away, but I wouldn't be losing too much sleep over it.
So can I head the football away and chuck you a rugby ball in your direction? It's been a big talking point this week, and you think controversy is only limited to the round ball sport, but it's definitely not. Big debating after Scotland versus England. Is it time that the SRU lob in a complaint over what gone down last week at Twickenham?
Absolutely. I think the game. I mean, listen. I think the game should be replayed. I mean, it's absolutely if this was in football. Honestly, can you imagine if it's Scotland and England in the football in this country? It'd be literally. I mean, a month of.
But rugby players are gentlemen.
But they're a bit more kind of gentlemanly. But I just think. Listen, England didn't deserve to win that game last week. I mean, a try the phantom ghost try that never was. Quite how the referee, was it Pierre Gousseau, or what you call him? How could he possibly award that try? Even though there's no evidence suggested a try. So right away, I mean, rugby's slightly different than football. You can't. Maybe sometimes can be a wee bit more subjective, but it's not a try. So that's not a try. Then you chuck in the fact that the match-winning conversion kick at the end. It makes it Finners take it about 5 yards from where it actually was. And by the way, the angle 5 yards in is a heck of a lot easier than it was. So I mean, these are two. I mean, by the way, there's more decisions on the park all day that were going against Scotland. I think that listen, you don't ever see matches replayed for incidents that are controversial, but rugby leads the way. They're the ones with the TMIs and all that stuff, and video replays, and they're ahead of the game in terms of technology. They should be ahead of the game in terms of replaying matches that are unjust. That match, 100%. Result should not have stood. Should get them back out and get them again, because Scotland gave them a doing. It should have been a victory.
Is that not Gregor Townsend? I was nearly going to say tearing his hair out, but that would seem as having a go at the man. But he must at breaking point every year. This is a team on the verge, but the max they just cannot seem to break. Ireland, a fortnight ago, you felt this is the time. It wasn't. England, they dominated again, 5 Kolkata Cups in a row. They don't get the job done. But it's just not the way in rugby. They just don't. That's it. It's very much. They like a small debate. But
that's what happened in football years ago. Was it Bahrain against somebody, and there was a mistake with the technology, and they didn't get the decisions right, and they replayed the game. I think they should lead the way and demand another shot at it, and send them homeward to think again on home soil.
So Jamie Carragher's the next man in that.
Speaking of controversy, yeah.
Well, I think with Jamie Carragher, he's had a few running battles recently, but the latest has really sparked was the whole continent's against him.
Yeah, that's good going when you upset a massive continent. Yeah.
So African Cup of Nations, a proud tournament for the countries that take part. Jamie Carragher, he obviously changed his.
What did they say?
Well, he felt that the African Cup of Nations wasn't a major tournament.
That was the quote, wasn't it? He said that Mo Salah would be finding it hard to win the Ballon d'Or because he hasn't won a World Cup, Euro Championships, Cup America, because the AFCON isn't in that bracket.
Is he right to say that?
I think it's clumsily worded, and I think I can understand why it's caused a bit of a ruckus. And I think the AFCON has got its place in the global game. I think it's a tournament where you see an awful lot of guys who are going to be the next big thing. We saw it years gone by. Your Drogba's and these kind of guys are started at that level and came to Europe and been global superstars. I think there's been some cracking games in it, but I think you have to be. I don't think it should. I don't think that will prevent Salah from winning a Ballon d'Or, to be honest with you. But I do think, when you look at the pecking order of major football and tournaments, I think it's pretty much not at the bottom, because I think there is ones below there. But I think it's definitely behind the World Cup, the Euros, the Copa America. I think it is. That's just that. What he's saying isn't. I don't think is that controversial. I think that's where it fits in the pecking order. I think it's a major tournament, though. But I don't think it's not a major tournament.
With that. I feel these countries, they cannot change. The infrastructure's not there. The pride doesn't change. So even though technically it's correct, it's just such a dismissive tone. And do you know what as well, we carry, let's be honest, on Monday Night Football, he's an analyst without compare, right? But he keeps getting himself involved in these, it's like these quips at present. And I just feel that one, it's just dismissive to football crazy countries that are doing all they can. And listen, it doesn't look like major tournaments sometimes in terms of infrastructure, but there's a genuine pride. And the one thing that I would say is really important is these players race to go and represent their country. It matters so much to the players.
At the wrong times of the season, though. Of course, the scheduling is terrible as well. I mean, you're taking out some of the players, world-class players in leagues, and by the way, the most expensive leagues in the world, and removing them for 2 or 3 weeks and 4 weeks. I think the scheduling has to be looked at as well. But yeah, we kind of agree that he was a bit offside, wasn't he?
Yes.
It's not going to cost him his job or cost him any money. But speaking of money in general, the Cheltenham Festival was coming up. An annual wallet buster for me in general. People are getting a bit. I've seen a lot of people now getting a wee bit fed up with the costs, the rising costs. Not even just the ticket cost, but the cost of accommodation and your bevy. Has it got too expensive?
Yes, it's got too expensive, but it's still an event to experience. But do you know the problem is what's happened with the Benidorm and Benidorm? It's a new place. It's an amalgamation of two resorts between Benidorm and Tenerife. It's a great plan. It's foolproof.
It seems to be a new kind of a way of thinking that the guys, rather than going to the racing, they go on holiday to watch the racing.
I know, exactly. I'd make a good piece in the paper, that. But that's the thing with the guys at Scott McDermott last year who covered it. It's a brilliant idea. And it's almost like, why did we not think of that earlier? And in this world of, you can go down to the Cotswolds and experience it down that way, or just a quick flight.
You can sit watching the house, but
I can see this. I think Cheltenham's getting a raw deal, actually. I think it's getting a raw deal for the reason that it's just a foolproof plan way to watch it. So rather than going down, let's be honest, right, mid-March, you can get a nice bit of bright sun, but sometimes it's -2 and wind chill at times. It can be horrific weather as well, and it's exposed down there, and you need your lip balm and all this to keep yourself nice, and that's just the main. And you've got the point as well that's I just think it's a different experience. I think Cheltenham's almost been let out or exposed now that punters have found a better way. And why not, in this modern world where everything costs a bomb, why not go to Benidorm with the week of your life? It sounds like a great plan.
I do think the greed has got out of hand in terms of Cheltenham. I mean, it's not just the organisers and in terms of, I think ticket prices maybe not so much, but the cost of a pint in the place. But it's all the kind of other things, like I mentioned, that the hotels. I mean, you go to a hotel in that area the week before and the week after, and you're £100 a night. It's £400, £500, £600 a night for that week. And I know it's supply and demand, but that it has to be a point where it's a bit. I mean, capitalism running riot, isn't it? And you're taking away from the kind of working class folk who have made the event what it is. I think it's a bit of a shame. Don't get me wrong. If I can swing a long week in Benidorm, I would love to. I'd love to do that as well. Get that sunshine.
Undercover.
But I think Cheltenham have to really think about who matters. And it's the punters. It's the atmosphere that makes the Cheltenham Festival. And I think by making it so expensive, they're taking it away from a lot of people, which I think is a bit of a shame.
So on Game On today, we fired a few jabs at each other. It's gone, but now there's two boxers looking for the knockout with very famous names: Ben versus Eubank. We know them, their dads raged battle in the past, and now the sons are going to do it. Is this going to be a fight to remember, or is it all hype? Is Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. take on at Tottenham Stadium?
Listen, it's absolutely all hype. I mean, it's without the hype, it isn't even a fight because it's not even the two guys in the same weight division. I mean, you've got Eubank Jr. who's won world titles at super middleweight, and Conor Benn who's a welterweight, who, by the way, has hardly fought in 3 years, given his problems with drugs bans and controversies and all that kind of stuff. If these two didn't have these names, would they be fighting? No chance. Then you look at the build up this week and hitting each other with eggs and all that and winding each other up. If these guys have proper fighters in a proper fight, in a world title fight, they wouldn't need to do all this stuff. So they're doing it. They're creating all this. And by the way, we all lap it up. We all lap up the kind of the full outrage and the kind of the spiciness and niggle and all that stuff. It's just a way of demand. I mean, listen, 150,000 folk in the waiting list for tickets. So it's worked. Yeah. The hype train has very much worked. But in terms of a fight, it shouldn't be. It's a mismatch, surely, isn't it?
Yes, and the problem with Ben in the most recent fights, the power, like he's got power at points. I think a guy like Chris Eubank have been. I don't know how he gets them out of there.
No,
exactly. The problem is, I've fallen hook, line and sinker for this for some reason, and it actually reminds me of the Hey Chisora fight because I feel the bad blood's genuine, and I think it is. But I don't know why. Like I'm as cynical as anyone right now, but I've been glued to this all week, and maybe that what you said about the tickets, 130,000, that just shows I think I'm not the only one. Of course it's hype, but I still think boxing's the great vehicle. It can set up hype like no other sport, and I'll be sitting watching come mid-April this fight.
Listen, I'm the same. I'm simple minds are easily persuaded, and I'm in right. I will watch the fight, but it smacks to me of this kind of YouTubeification of boxing.
But at least we're getting two real fighters.
They are two real fighters. But listen, Eubank Jr. 35 as well. He'd been a decent fighter. I mean, won world titles and all that stuff. Ben, I thought he looked as though he'd heading that path until his career went kind of sideways. Listen, it's hype, but I've bought in hype as well. I'll cough up my money as usual to watch the fight. But anyway, the final bell has rung for us. It's
the tail is in.
Unanimous defeat, I think, or a points victory for one. Maybe call it a draw.
Okay.
But listen, thank you for listening and watching this week's episode of Game On. We're back next week. You can find us on all the usual outlets: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, X.
Yeah,
you name it. Blue Sky thing for me. He's got whatever you want to find it. If you want to leave a review or a comment, please be nice as always. But we will back next week. Do it all over again. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.